And welcome back, everyone, to Pokemon Creation Series, or Pokemon Team Creation Series, as I call it. This one comes to us from Power 99. Now, I actually will note, you originally, I believe you asked for Primus, the opposite to Unicron, and that's who I was initially going to do. Unfortunately, I came to a very clear conclusion that that's not a character I can really do a coherent team for. There is just not enough available. Unlike with Unicron, who was like actually present as a character and had feats and things along those lines. Primus doesn't have that same type of. Primus took a very different path in the stories. So instead, I went with another one you suggested, Katara from Avatar, which I was thinking on. I'm not sure if I've done most of the characters from Avatar. I can't remember if I got an Aang Pokemon team. I'll have to check for that. But regardless, yeah, Katara is, the ultimate love interest of Aang. She was one of the main characters of the series for most of its run. She is a waterbending master by the end of the series. She's the kind of the big sister of the group. And yeah, ultimately, I liked the character. And so when thinking of a team for her, it becomes pretty obvious a giant bulk of her team are going to be water Pokemon. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the team will be water Pokemon. Let's start out. If I were to think of what her ace Pokemon would be, her main Pokemon, the one she started her journey with, Milotic comes to mind. Now, Milotic's been showing up a little bit here or there, but it's a good Pokemon. It's a solid Pokemon. It's a strong Pokemon, so I do like Milotic. But beyond that, it's also a Pokemon that really works, I think, well for Katara. Again, strong, makes sense, but also elegant. It's considered the most beautiful Pokemon. Katara is considered quite an attractive girl. But it's also a Pokemon that, it's because of where it comes from, Feebas. It's a Pokemon that actually kind of illustrates the journey of it's because it's the idea of the ugly duckling turning into the swan a little bit. And while Katara is certainly not an ugly duckling turning into a swan physically, in terms of her skill, that's actually pretty apt. She's starts off as a novice, the only waterbender in the South Pole who can barely waterbend to begin with. But she had so much potential, with the proper training, she turned into a waterbending master. So I think Milotic works well. Now I'd be saying, what about what was it, the blue spirit, or what was it called? The woman in the mist? The spirit she was posing as. You might be saying, well, that's a good representation of that. Hold for that, because I actually do have some other another Mon on the list that represents that. But here's where we go a little bit off beaten path. See, down the road, she learned the ability to bloodbend. Now, the only way you can bloodbend is under the light of the full moon. And luckily, we do have a moon-based Pokemon in Lunatone. Now, you might be saying, well, it's not a full moon, and you're right about that. It's not a full moon. It actually would be kind of cool to see variants of Lunatone. That would have been a cool thing to do, where you could find versions of Lunatone where it actually is different versions of the moon. I wonder what a new moon Lunatone will look like, because the new moon is basically when there's no moon in the sky at all. So I am wondering what that would look like for the Lunatone. Maybe it just looks like this floating eye with this little crust of rock, and then the full version would be maybe its nose still sticks out, but it's kind of on its side. I don't know. But beyond that, the only other Pokemon that's really a moon-based Pokemon, and we're not counting Pokemon that evolve through the use of a Moonstone. That doesn't count. But a Pokemon that can evolve, or the Pokemon that does represent the moon in any capacity, would be Lunatone, and it's still not really a full moon. I mean, yeah, if it angles its body right, it kind of represents the full moon a little bit, but it's more emissary of the moon than anything else. So I felt that Lunatone worked well for the idea of a Pokemon that helps amplify someone else's abilities to do something, since it is a psychic type. Now, one of the other things Katara is noted for is having a bit of a temper. And if you're talking about water Pokemon, there's no better water Pokemon with a temper than good old Gary. This also going with the whole idea of the Magikarp, a relatively weak Pokemon going to a strong Pokemon, still fits with Katara's journey. But again, representing the fact that she does have a bit of a temper on her sometimes, I think it works good. But then again, there is I can't remember the name of the spirit, the legend she was posing as. But it was a spirit that was said to be a guardian. She was helping protect people, and so I felt it was a good little aspect in her journey to put into the Pokemon team. And on that level, we got to go with Frostlass. It's based off of Yukione, which is a type of yokai in the Japanese mythology, which takes the form of a beautiful woman that lures men to their death. It's kind of like a ice siren. That's a very interesting way to look at Yukiones. They're ice sirens basically. Of course, they don't just focus on men; they focus on any weary travelers in like snowstorms in the mountains, and then lure them to their death. So it's kind of all around. Regardless, Frostlass I think works well. It also actually looks like it's wearing clothes, which is like a kimono, which is what Katara was doing when she was disguising herself as that. And it works towards another aspect of Katara when it comes to waterbending, and that is ice manipulation. Expert master waterbenders can manipulate ice, create ice, all that cool their water down. So it's something that they are very capable of doing. So that works out pretty well. Also, to the point, Lapras. Lapras was really kind of the last mon I put on a team. It's a bit more of just kind of like filling in the spot, but I wanted another mon, honestly, on the team that could work with ice. I felt that, and Lapras, given the fact that she often traveled on Appa, I think works here. It's a transport Pokemon, so it's also a very gentle Pokemon as well, which goes to the more nurturing, mothering side of Katara. That being said, before we get to the last one, I should note that one of the other aspects of Katara that is still represented in here would be Milotic knowing Life Dew. I wanted a Pokemon on the team that could also learn healing moves because Katara is also a very good healer, especially near the end of the series where I think she's considered like the world's best. Regardless, the last mon on the team that made it was Keldeo. Keldeo, being one of the Swords of Justice, goes very well towards Katara having a very strong moral compass and sense of justice, to the point where she can sometimes be a little, what's the best way to put it? She might act without thinking sometimes. And therefore, it goes to the idea that Keldeo is also the youngest member of the Swords of Justice, and therefore has the most things to learn. Regardless, this is the team I chose for her. Now, as always, how balanced is this team, and how well will this team do? First off, balancing. Yeah, not the most balanced in the world. Milotic, Lunatone, and Keldeo all get kind of trounced by both electric types and grass types. Electric types particularly kind of run the gambit through this entire team, almost. Only Lunatone and Frostlass aren't weak to electric types, and Gyarados and Lapras aren't weak to grass types because of their secondary typing, so they're at least safe from that. But unfortunately, the Ice type Mon and the Flying type Mon are all weak to rock types, regardless of the water type. Also, the Ice types and the rock type are weak to Steel, which isn't good. So, yeah, there are 4 big typings that really kind of wreak havoc on this team a little bit. Although, that doesn't necessarily mean if they went up against a team like a gym leader with these types that they'd immediately lose. Case in point, if we go over what I thought was the region this team would do best in. A side note of that, I was having a conversation with one of the viewers, and they were talking about how they think I should like give move sets, but I'm not going to give move sets because particularly they also said it will make how this character would train their team, and I'm not going to do that because if you're just going like TMs and just creating a move set, because I'd have to go through the moveset as we go through the journey, and then that changes up, and that's a bit of work, and I'm just going by the moves they learn naturally. They also made a comment because it's the comment of saying that it's like you're just going through the games, and that's the point. I'm just going through the games. I'm not doing an anime or a Pokemon journey here. I'm going through the games. So yeah, they understood absolutely. It's just, yeah, I need to be very clear. I'm still not doing, if someone's trying to ask for that, I'm still not doing an actual Pokemon journey series for any of these people. So sorry if that doesn't work for you. But when it comes to Kanto, yes, Kanto isn't that difficult. Honestly, because even though Lunatone you would get like around, because if you, by the way, look from Milotic to Gary and then Frostlass to Keldeo, that's the order you would collect these Pokemon in your journey. Milotic is also advantageous because it's a fully evolved Pokemon you could theoretically have at level 1. You just have to either use a Marvelous skill to train it or gets Beauty all the way up. But you could literally have a level 1 Milotic, and it's a fully evolved Pokemon, which is advantageous as hell in this type of thing. So, yeah, Brock, you take care of Brock, no problem. Misty, honestly, even with Lunatone on that team being weak to water, it's secondary psychic typing, at least means I think it can take a hit and then throw out a hit. So, Misty is no problem. Surge, though, would be a problem. In fact, Surge is probably the one I see the most problems on any gym leader here at all. That being said, by the time you get to Surge, you should have a fully evolved Gyarados. Even though it's times 4 weak to Electric, you could probably get at least one attack in. Because the only fully evolved Pokemon on the team is the Raichu. So, that being said, and Milotic will also have enough bulk to take at least a hit or two. And Lunatone, while not being immune to Electric, or even really that resistant, isn't weak to Electric. And having Psychic-type moves that early should be helpful. So even though Surge is difficult, I do think you can get through Surge. And then after that, you should have Frostlass, and Gyarados and Frostlass being both flying and therefore resistant to grass, ice resistant to grass, and having ice-type moves means that you should be able to get through Erica. And at that point, then, it's kind of a clean sweep. Because you should, by the time you get to Sabrina, you'll have the full 6 team. These guys are going to be pretty powerful. Frostlass being a ghost type with ghost type moves is going to be very advantageous, and it's a speedster. I mean, it's maybe not a speedster, but it's very fast. Then Blaine should be no issue. Neither should Giovanni. Honestly, your biggest issues are going to come when you get to the Elite Four, and particularly when you're getting to both Lance and you're getting to Blue. Blue's team is very diverse. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he does have an Electabuzz, or he had some sort of Electric-type Pokemon on there. Regardless, though, I think he's still got enough coverage that you can become the champion of Kanto without a huge amount of degree. Arguably, the easiest region to become champion with this team would be the Johto region. Again, you start with Milotic being fully evolved, being right around the levels of the Pidgeotto and the Pidgey. I mean, level 9, to be honest. To be fair, I also look at this from the idea of natural learn movesets and being around the level of your gym leader, but you can be a little higher, and I think that's fine. Yeah, Milotic should still be able to take down Faulkner without any issue whatsoever. Lunatone should be able to completely resist any of the bug-type moves that Bugsy has, so that's good. Milktick's always problematic, but having a relatively strong rock-type with Psychic moves plus 2 fully evolved Pokemon, and having Intimidate likely on the Gyarados, which means you should be able to get through the Milk Tank easy. Without too much difficulty, anyway. Then, of course, we deal with Morty and his ghost types. Honestly, at that point, you have Frostlass, so that should be, and you should have some Dark-type moves on Gyarados, at least Bite, so that should be no problem. Then you get Chuck, again, immune to a lot of the attacks from his Fighting-type mom with Frostlass. Shouldn't be that big of a problem. Then you go through the rest of them. Honestly, both Jasmine, Price, and Claire should not be too difficult. And yeah, honestly, Johto is probably one of the easiest ones you can handle. Elite Four would not be that difficult because you're dealing with a poison type user, a psychic type user, another fighting type user, again, if I remember correctly, or no, a dark type user. And then, I think Bruno is there, yeah. But either way, the fighting type is only problematic to your 2 ice types. Even your rock type is part psychic, so it's going to be able to resist the fighting. And then you got to deal with Lance, who, again, you have 2 relatively powerful psychic types plus a legendary on there. You are psychic ice types. So yeah, Johto I think is the easiest one you can handle. After that, though, yes, it does become a lot more challenging. You have no problem with Roxanne. You won't even have any real problems with Brawly. You won't even have any problems with Brawly. You might stop, though, at Watson. Because not only does he have electric types, he's got electric steel types. And even though you might have an attack or 2 that could get through, it's still going to take a while to get through. And you have no one who's immune to electric. You have no ground types on this team. The 3 Mon you have up top there, as powerful as they are still going to get hurt immensely by electric types. Gyarados is probably going to go down either by the first or second move. And the steel type means that they are going to be able to resist most of your attacks and dish it back out. Watson might be the point where you stop. However, if you can get past Watson, and that's an if, most of the rest of Hoenn is a pretty good, clean sweep. Obviously, Flannery's not going to be an issue, even though don't use Frostlass. Norman, those slackings are powerful, but again, just use like Frostlass a lot, and you should be fine. I can't remember is it Skylar? Is the flying gym leader from Hoenn? Can't remember her name. But that would be a little problematic. Altaria is pretty powerful, but being a dragon means weak to ice. Again, the twins are no issue. Your problem actually comes in with the last gym leader because they're also a water type with ice types as well, and a few other types mixed in there. That one's going to be a knockdown, dragged out fight. And then you got to get through the Elite Four, and this is not a good team for this Elite Four. The Dark type can take out your ice types, because that's the first gym leader is a Dark type. I can't remember his name, but Dark types. Then he's got, I believe, a Cacnea on the team, two as a matter. Or no, he's got one Cacnea or two Cacneas. I can't remember how many Cacneas, but he got one Cacturns. He got at least one Cacturn and a Shiftry, which means a lot of grass, and he can take care of your Frostlass, which would be advantageous against them. And the Dark type is also strong against Psychic. So that one guy alone is problematic. Then you get into the Psychic types. That team shouldn't be a big issue, nor should the Ice type. The Dragon type, gym leader or Elite Four member, problematic a little bit, but not too much. Your Ice type should be able to handle him. I'll be honest, you might be able to beat Steven, but the problem is he does have 3 rock types and a ground type, admittedly. However, one of those rock types is a steel type, so part of that water weakness is already cut in half. One of them is a grass type, so again, cuts the weakness in half. And freaking Cradilly's got a lot of energy zapping moves. And then that Claydol is still going to be problematic to a certain degree. The Claydol will probably be the easiest one to take down. And then you got to deal with Metagross, and nothing on this team has any sort of move set design. Gyarados can learn fire-type moves, but not naturally, and no fighting-type move is going to matter because it's part psychic. The only thing you got that can really do much is Frostlass, and Frostlass might be taken out at this point. So Steven, I'm not sure you can beat Steven with this team. It's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think there's avenues you can do if you're able to clean sweep a lot of them before your first Mon goes down. But that's not as bad as Sinnoh. Sinnoh, I legitimately don't think you can be a champion at Sinnoh. Because right out the gate, Milotic will take care of Rourke, no problem. But then you get to Gardenia. Water and a rock psychic type. There is very little chance you have that you're going to be beating this team, her team. Unless you're able to get some psychic moves off on the Rose Raid, you are almost certainly not beating that team. Even if I were to be nice, and give her Milotic and one of the other Mons, except for Frostlass, because remember, I got to keep it at the level. Except for Frostlass, I'm not 100% sure you could beat that team on any of these. And even then, Frostlass has to know an Ice-type move. Lapras might be able to do it, but Lapras is also a little on the slow side compared to some of Rotomon, particularly Rose Raid, and even though its Ice-type resists, there's a lot of status moves in there, so yeah, I don't think you could even get past Gardenia. If you could, you actually shouldn't have too much of a problem throughout most of the gyms until you get to Wagner. And yeah, Wagner is going to, again, electric is a big weakness of this team, is going to cleave through a lot of this team. A lot of this team pretty easily, too. Because not only does he have 2 very powerful electric types, he has 2 non-electric types that are not even going to be, that don't even have really any type weaknesses to capitalize on. Because he's got Ambipom, if I remember correctly, and he's got Octillery. So yeah, it's not the best scenario for you, unfortunately, going up against Wagner. And even if you get past him, you still got to deal with the Elite Four. The ground type gym leader or Elite Four are not that big of an issue. Neither is the bug, honestly. Hell, neither is even the fire is relatively easy. Neither is the Psychic type. Actually, not that bad. You can't beat Cynthia with this team. I'm gonna tell you right now, you can't beat Cynthia with this team. 50% of this, not even 50% of this team. Looking at the math real quick here. 2/3 of this team, or no, actually no, yeah, quarter of the. So yeah, 2/3 of this team are water based. Great, wonderful. I'm gonna be honest, that Gyarados probably doesn't know any flying type moves. You might be asking, why is that important? Nothing here knows grass type moves. Okay, why is that important? Because her damn Gastrodon has Storm Drain, which means all of your water moves are SOL. That's just going to boost her special attack, which means the only thing you can hit with is non-water moves on that Gastrodon. All these mons should have something. The problem is water resists ice, so the ground type weakness, ice weakness the ground type on Gastrodon has is completely just now neutralized. So Frostlass and Lapras aren't throwing that out. So what about other moves? Psychic type moves? High special defense on that son of a bitch. What about the fighting type moves? High defense on that son of a bitch. Like, that Gastrodon is a menace. A straight up menace for a water-based team. A heavy water-based team. And that's just the Gastrodon. She doesn't even open up with that. She opens up with Spiritomb. You got to beat several mon on that team before you even get to the Gastrodon. And there's a good chance a couple of your guys are going to be out already. So you're not beating Cynthia. I don't think you can beat Cynthia. When it comes to Unova, honestly, Unova is... I honestly don't think you can beat Unova either. The reason for that really comes down to, again, once you get to the 4th gym leader, you're dealing with a very powerful electric gym leader. And those Amogas are no joke. Those, combined with Aerial Ace and then, Volt Switch, those things are no joke. If you could get past that, you still got to deal with the rest of the gym leaders, which isn't too difficult, but then you got to deal with the Elite Four. None of them have a type advantage over you, which is good. If you can get past that, then you got to deal with either Alder later in the game or Iris. And Iris is a pure dragon type trainer, and a lot of her dragons have coverage for the mon on your team that have advantages. Several of them have Flamethrower, and several of them are pseudo legendaries. So yeah, you're not going to be able to beat the Frostlass. Might be able to get some hits in, but and same with the Lapras. But the problem just comes down to that Hydreigon alone is a pseudo legendary with Flamethrower on it. That means that Frostlass, if it doesn't take it down the first go, is done, because Frostlass are glass cannons. Lapras can handle a little better, but some of her dragons also have electric attacks, and that electric attack is going to wipe out a giant chunk of this team. So you're not beating Iris. And Alder has more variety on this team. 3 different bug types, which you have no real strength or weakness against. The Buffalont is a tank. Volcarona, obviously, and Excavalier, and Excelgor, which is super... Honestly, I think it's faster than anything on this team. Not to mention, you also have Vanillite... is it Vanilla or Vanillish? Vanilla... It's the fully evolved ice cream cone. That's the one that's on there. And I can't remember actually what the final mon on this team was. All I know was, he's got a Druddigon as well. So if those ice types are already taken out at this point, Druddigon's going to run through your team. So you can't beat Alder either. So I don't think you could become Unova champion either. Kalos is easier, but Diantha is going to be problematic. Honestly, you won't really have a problem with any of the gym leaders because many of them don't even have a full roster of attacks on their team. So none of the gym leaders I think are problematic, even the ones that have type advantages, because by the time you get to those gym leaders, you have mon that can handle it. It's the Elite Four that's actually problematic. The Fire type gym leader, no worries. And honestly, the Dragon type gym leader, or I keep saying gym, Elite Four member. The Fire type Elite Four member, not really any problem. And the Dragon type Elite Four member shouldn't be that problematic, just because you have 2 ice types on the team. It's the Steel type and the Water type that are going to be problematic because you have no strength again. You have nothing on this team. Like I said, even for something like Gyarados, which can in fact learn some fire moves, that's not going to help you on this team. Most of those mon on their team are going to either outspeed Gyarados or have a secondary type that is going to prevent it from being damaged too bad, except for Scissor, which will go down immediately. But if you can get past that, the Water type Elite Four member is going to be problematic. And then Diantha herself has a very versatile team. She's underlooked by a lot of the champions out there. She's kind of an underlooked champion. but she's not weak. She's actually got a very versatile team. So you might be able to, but the problem is, even if I were to give, like, say, Mega Evolution to Katara, the only thing that can Mega Evolve is Gyarados, and she's got a Mega Gardevoir, which is still Psychic Fairy. So that's not good, because the Fairy type's just going to completely neg any Dark type moves. And then you go into Galar. Galar, I don't think you could you could beat. I just don't think you could. Right out the gate, you start with a Milotic, fully evolved or not, you go up against a Grass Gym Leader. That is not advantageous. The only upside you really have is the fact that Milotic can learn Twister before level 19. That's pretty much it, which means you can use the Gigantamax Dragon move. I don't know if that's going to be enough, though. You're at a Supreme type advantage. Even now, by some miracle, if you were to get past Milo, and that's a big if, you then would be able to clear a large portion of the gyms. In fact, most of them, as a matter of fact. Because then you'll add Lunatone on for the water gym. Milotic should be strong enough to deal with most of the water types, the Pokemon on her team. Lunatone would take the brunt of the hits first, and then Milotic would come and sweep him up. You'll have no trouble with the next guy, Kobu, because he's a fire type. You wouldn't have any trouble really with the ghost type gym leader or the fighting type gym leader. You wouldn't struggle with the fairy much. You wouldn't struggle with the dark all that much. Both the ice and rock would go down hard. The problem just comes down really to Leon. His team is too versatile for you to be. He has a Dragapult on the team with an electric attack. That's going to waste your team. Dragapult, there's nothing on this team that can beat a Dragapult in a speed race. So there's that. I don't think you can beat Leon. And then you get to Paldea. Honestly, it all comes down to if you can get past Iona, which luckily, because it can do it out of order, in theory, yes. But if we're going by the order in which you're supposed to do it, if you can beat Iona, great. But Iona still has a type advantage, and Lunatone I don't think is going to be able to survive ultimately, especially because she has a Miss Magius on the team. In theory, though, again, if you could get past Iona, which is not impossible, just difficult, then you actually shouldn't have a problem with the rest of the gyms. And the Elite Four, while one is a Steel type gym leader, an Elite Four member, another is a Dragon type Elite Four member, then you have a Ground and a Flying type. Ground's not going to be problematic. Dragon with your two ice types should be fine because you also have a legendary on the team. Honestly, the biggest problem you're going to deal with is the Steel one. The Steel type, like I said, is going to be problematic for this team. But I could see you getting through it, and then you just got to deal with Gita, who, yes, you can beat Gita's team with this. Honestly, most of her Pokemon actually are ironically weak to water, or at least have a strong aversion to water. I mean, Avalug's going to be weak to water. Her Glamora is going to be weak to water. She also has a Veluza, a Go-Goat, the King Gambit, and I can't remember what the sixth mon. Oh, as Pathra, which, because you have a Ghost type on the team, should be able to take care of that, no problem. Yeah, so ultimately, you could become the champion. So the easiest region, I think, to become the champion in is Johto with this team. The region that I think is the most difficult, but you could still do it, is probably Hoenn. And then you're not going to beat Cynthia or Alder or Iris. You might be able to beat Dianthia, but I don't think you're beating Leon either. So that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.